Now, in 15 years' time, Moscow will probably look radically different. A court has today rejected an appeal against Genplan. That's a controversial redevelopment plan for the Russian capital until 2025. And Genplan, it sparked a public outcry when it was adopted in May. That was by ex-mayor Lushkov's administration.
Activists say it will completely destroy Moscow's historical look. Let's talk now to our correspondent Jacob Graves. Jacob, I'm twisting my tongue here. Hopefully you'll get it better. Please tell us who challenged this plan in the courts, and initially why did the appeal fail?
Well, sure, it's the chairman of the political party Yabloko that really gained its voice back in the 90s. Now, the reason he's taken this to court is because he said that the Russian government never really officially ordained this, never said that this plan was approved. Now, the defendants of this, the City Hall and the City Duma, said that, well, the government didn't need to, that they had approved it really by allowing them to go ahead with it in the first place. And it looks like the judge has agreed, because he has sided with the City Hall in this particular case, and the chairman's case has been thrown out. Of course, he does have another chance to appeal if he wants to take this to the Supreme Court.
OK, so it looks like the general plan, or Genplan's getting the go-ahead. 15 years, that's quite a big undertaking. What exactly will it entail?
Well, yeah, sure, 15 years. Well, it's going to be a big construction boom if this goes ahead. It's going to really reshape the whole look of Moscow. What they want to do is they want to actually tear down 5 million square metres of property. In its place, build up 200 million square metres. So a very large undertaking, like you said. It's going to include a few high-rise buildings. They also say they want to establish 2 million new parking spaces. So I suppose some good news there for motorists. And also, they say it's going to reduce bureaucracy when it comes to new planning developments. Now, this is according to the chief architect of the city, who says, he cites one example. There's apparently 20,000 hectares of unused industrial space in Moscow, and he says that only 7,000 of that is actually needed for industrial sites. So under this plan, the remaining areas will actually be turned into office blocks or apartment blocks, so using Moscow space a lot more efficiently.
I see. Now, Jacob, we already mentioned that this plan has its critics. What is it that they don't like so much about it?
Well, the critics really take issue, saying that this could be the end of some of the historical neighbourhoods of Moscow. They say the real fear here, one of their main concerns, is the fact that it doesn't really highlight which sites will be kept and which will be torn down. So it's that lack of clarity, that lack of knowledge that is causing a lot of worry. They just don't know which historical sites won't or will be around in the future. Now, on top of that, it's also the traffic woes. They say that this plan does nothing to address the current traffic woes, and even perhaps could make them worse. They cite such examples as they plan to build 200 million square metres of extra property. Well, that's going to include a lot more people. It's going to mean a lot more cars on the street. Indeed, the Ministry of Transport has already said that come 2015, well, there's going to be 8 million cars, double the amount there is now, on Moscow's street. That's what they expect. So they say this plan doesn't take that into account, and it doesn't really say how they deal with such an issue. So I think the main problems with the critics is the fact that they say this lacks clarity as a document.
This project aside, Jacob, are there any other changes in store for Moscow's skyline?
Well, sure, and they're being undertaken by the current mayor, Vladimir Rezin. Now, he's already come in, made quite an impact in terms of construction. As you might expect, it was one of his former positions. Now, taking one such building, for an example, the attic of Boris Pasternak. Now, this is a very famous Russian author and poet, as I'm sure you're aware, author of Dr. Zhivago. Now, this is the house that he was born in that we're talking about, and in that house, that there was in 2003 an attic built, and he's actually come out and said that was built illegally and it's going to have to be torn down. There's another case of the a Museum of Russian History on Zubotsky Boulevard. Now he's saying that there was a construction work to be going on there, a conservatory to be built in addition to the already existing building. He's saying that won't go ahead. Earlier this week we've already had him saying that the very famous St. Peter the Great monument, that ship on the Moscow River, I'm sure you've all seen it, well, potentially that should be moved away. So he's already made a massive impact in terms of construction in a very short time, and this has added to a bit of media hype, really, saying how long exactly is he going to stay in this position? Some highlighting the fact that he's recently gone and joined up as a member of the United Russian Party. On top of that, he's met Vladimir Putin, and they're saying that potentially he could be in the job for 2 more years. But he's been really quick to downplay some of this hype, saying that, well, he is a 74-year-old man, fairly old in political years, and that in his personal opinion, the next man to take the job he's in at the moment should be 20 to 25 years younger.
I see. Thank you very much for that. That is our correspondent Jacob Greaves. We're talking about how Moscow could be dramatically changing, or possibly not. To discuss the issue further, we're joined by Marina Hrustaleva from the Moscow Architecture Preservation Society. Marina, thanks so much for joining us here on Prime Time. First and most important, I think, generally, what made so many people get very angry with the Genplan?
You know, Genplan was created quite a lot of years ago, about 15 or 20 years, so it's an old document. This year and the last year it was just actualized, which means slightly changed. And in fact, this general plan treats Moscow as a city inside the so-called roadway, and it doesn't treat Moscow as a Moscow region. And for nowadays, it's obvious that it's a way to tragedy that Moscow can't be developed inside the Moscow road ring. This is the first point. The second is that this general plan divides all the Moscow, including the historic center, into the zones of 2 types: zones of stabilization and zones of the development, of regeneration. And a lot of historical objects and listed objects of cultural heritage are now in the zones of the development. So we stress that all Moscow center inside the old walls of Kamer-Kalersky Wall, which is approximately like the third road, should be the preserved zone without new construction at all.
Let's talk about the acting city mayor at the moment. He is trying to appear with a good face towards the public. He even proposed getting rid of the Peter the Great controversial big statue. Should we be expecting any change on the scene?
Well, you know, Mr. Racing is very professional and very experienced man. And he worked as the chief developer in Moscow for many years, almost the same period as Yuri Lushkov was the mayor. So all the things which were done during the period of their rule were done all together with mayor and him and chief architect Alexander Kuzmin. And so it could be naive to think that something will change immediately.
If somebody wants to do something about what's happening, perhaps you know a building that you particularly care about and want to try and help protect, what can the average person on the street do to get involved?
If you're just a citizen, if you're just a guest of Moscow and you walk along Moscow and see some marvelous house which seems to be under threat, first what you should do, you should visit the website of Moscow Heritage Committee, the official structure, and look for the register. Now it's published online, thanks God. And so if you know the address, you may find the house there and find out if it's listed or not. If it's listed, you may be free really to go to the local police station or to go to court and to write all the necessary papers that, for example, you see the fact of demolition, or you see the building gate without any explanation, or you see some homeless people getting into this house, which is prohibited because the listed heritage houses should be preserved from all of this.
We're talking about Moscow's impending Genplan, and we're getting all the details from Marina Hrustaleva. Thank you to you from the Moscow Architecture Preservation Society.